these loops are in place, let's refine it a bit better. So I think if I look at it from this angle, you can see that right here there's a lot of smoothness going across these, right? It's incredibly smooth. Here in the other one that I've made, there is a bit more defined edge. Like it's harder, but not exactly. It has a bevel in a nice way that gives it dimension. So we kind of want to replicate that. The easiest way to do that is well, first off, I'm thinking that this will prove to be a problem. So I'll just cut like this, okay? And then after I've done that, I'll dissolve by selecting this middle edge and dissolve edge. Cool. And by the way, before we continue what I was just saying, let's be smart. Let's cut here in the middle like so. And then let's select these and delete all of them. Let's select these and delete all of them. And let's just work on this one part. Then introduce a mirror like so, go in edit mode and then select this vertex here and shift S. We want the 3D cursor, this, to active, and it moved there. And now we can go back out of edit mode and into object mode, right click, set origin to 3D cursor. And yeah, essentially the pivot point is now there, which means that the mirror works perfectly in the way we want it. I can then press Ctrl S, well, no, that's to save. I can then do Shift S and then cursor to borrowed origin, okay? Just so we reset. Cool, but anyway, so now we're just working on half of it. And this fix that we made here just went onto the other side, which is just lovely. So let's fix this by sliding it a bit like that. Slide these, and then these a bit more as well. Here, in order to fix this, because of the mirror, we want the mirror to be happening first, so we move it up, and then the subdivision, because the mirror essentially welds the vertices there, and the subdivision works in the way that we expect. Cool. And we start off by saying that this is too smooth, so let's fix it. We select from here to here, and we just bevel once. And then we remove the segments to be from 2, which was my default, to 1, because I don't want it like overly smooth, as I mentioned already. I increase the width a tiny bit. I can hold down Shift and this gives me more control. By the way, I'm holding Shift and sliding, because if you don't hold Shift, it just does much larger numbers. And there we go. So yeah, that kind of like works brilliantly, exactly like over there and what I wanted. Cool. So when I was making that other piece, then I remember distinctly that at some point I did a loop like this, and then I selected one part and I moved it out in order to give it like a bit of a punch, a bit of a more dimensionality and interest. But maybe I want to select this here and move it as well to get me to this shape. Cool. And yeah, we're slowly getting there. Let's select this and move it up. Go to the x-axis and move so, a bit like this. Now, let's see, what will I do? There is a bit of a hardness on my reference there, which I want to replicate. So I'm going to select from here to like, let's say here, and I'm going to bevel once, right? And I do this shape. And you can immediately see that before it was like this, like a Play-Doh, I get it to be like much more defined in shape. We really are after definition, whatever type of shape you're making, because as I mentioned, this is art and it's meant to be fun, so you can do things however you want. Just strive to have a good amount of like dimensionality, and the dimensionality is lost when there aren't enough loops and things look like Play-Doh. Here I merged a few of the vertices to kind of get me to a geometry that I like more. There's a point there, by the way, that I'm selecting. We cannot see it. If I change this, like I pressed on this triangle, I can actually see it a bit better. And now I can actually move it and slide it a bit more like what I wanted. This is a useful view, but a lot of time I find it easier to be out of it in this simplified wireframe before the subdivision happens, because yeah, I can slide things a bit better. Cool. That's very, very cool. So next up, I'm thinking we want a bit of a punch here. So I select that and then I select this. Cool. And we move them up. So that is most of the main shape done, really, if I'm being honest. I mean, that over there has a bit of a hardness from here to here and up there. It's kind of partially hidden by the leaf, that leaf piece that we're missing, but we'll create in a few minutes. So let's bevel this like so. Cool. And yeah, that got us to the wing immediately. And our wing on the version you're making and I'm making now has this circle at the end. The other one is a bit more defined, like a pinpoint that is sharper. So let's try to fix that. Select the upper piece and then slide down like so, and it immediately starts getting there. Really cool. Select these up, cool, and then select them all from here to up there. S to scale and Z to be bound on the Z-axis and pinch them like so. Nice. Then X-axis and move them up a bit. Cool. I'm gonna be honest with you, I kind of like this one that I just made a bit more than my old one already. I think this one, the old one is very soft in that Play-Doh type of a way that I mentioned. This one is a bit more refined, I feel like. And yeah, so maybe I'll not like try to replicate it exactly, but if you want to, you can. I'm thinking that here there might be a bit part that doesn't look nearly as nice. So I'm gonna change my loops here. By the way, I press K to cut and I go from here to here. I'm kind of like doing it by hand. I don't really care for being incredibly precise, and I end up there. And with that done, this I will try to dissolve. Cool. And kind of like fix me in a way that I wanted already. And now what I was thinking of doing is I select this and all the way to here. I move them down a bit and then I bevel really, okay? And that bevel, I give segments of 2. Cool. And that defined us even better. I might select this and move it in with doing a vertex slide. So I press G and then G again on my keyboard. And it got me this shape. So that one is a bit extruded. There's a bit of smoothness there that I kind of like, and I feel like that is lost here. And I know we just did a moment ago a bunch of bevels, but sometimes it's useful to do a few bevels in order to kind of extrapolate these different loops, and then you dissolve some of them because you essentially beveled this middle loop into 3 loops or 2 loops, and then some you dissolve, the ones that you don't like, but one of them new ones you keep, and it just gives you a lot of power to be versatile and quick into making the shapes that you want. Let's save so we don't lose it. And let's see, so that part I was on about there, that is a bit extruded. So maybe I'll cut from here to here, and that already, look at that, give me that curve that I was missing just a moment ago. Well, I had a sort of it, but it wasn't nearly as defined. And here we're all about defining shapes like that, okay? And then I move it out, and this maybe I'll move in. Look at that, that gives us a nice curve. Move this in as well. And here I'm gonna change the edge loop, the edge flow, I mean, of the geometry of the topology by hand by doing this, and then selecting this and dissolving that. Slide this in, and then slide that in. And yeah, that kind of gives us a nice shape already. Now I can pull and push and really get to identical shape as seen over there. I'm not gonna do that because this video already will be proving to be lengthy, and I meant to just show you my technique of my subdivision together with the mirrors in order to accomplish similar shapes to what I had, not identical. As such, let's continue and move to some of the leaf shapes. But before we do that, let us actually add another mirror, or no, we'll probably reuse the one that we have, and we'll say that we want to be on both this and this axis, on the X and the Y axis, right? And now we're going to try and give us the other side. But before we do that, so like my point is like there in the middle, which is useful because it makes so there isn't a gap in the middle. But I have a challenge, and that is this point needs to be there, but it also needs to be centered. It needs to be around here. And that way, when I mirror, it will actually create the entire threshold that I'm after. So just by saying this, I really figured out the easiest way would be to just select that in edit mode, and then Shift S, cursor to active, go out to object mode, origin to 3D cursor, cool. And then see like there's no gap, so everything is right. And then enable the Y on the mirror, and there we go. We successfully have threshold. Adore, really cool. Good job to us. So before I continue on it, I actually want to do a cleanup. I'm going to select that, and then I'll scale it onto the Z-axis, and then here on the Z I'll put 0, and that way flattens it. And I kind of like that, because why not? Nice. So with that being there, I'm going to take a look from here, and I'll turn... Yeah, I could kind of see it, but I want to illustrate it to you. My other door is a bit more circular, the one in the back. So I kind of want to fix that, and because I have it as a reference, it's rather easy for me to do that. Just replicate similar moves to what I'm doing, and hopefully you'll get there as well. So let's go into the X-ray mode and this, and then press W to get the marquee, and let's just slide on this axis. Here, let's select it all and move it like so. Here, get them, move them like that. Move these, and these I just want to like have them meet right there in the middle. They're clipping, by the way, and this might be making a bit of a problematic geometry or ugliness. I don't really care, because these parts I will hide through having another element clip into it. Will be some of my golden leaves, okay? But let's just still clean it up. So on the y-axis, put 0. And then here, let's move that, and on the y-axis also put 0. We essentially kind of like flatten them, and I'll move them over here, but back a bit, and then I'll extrude, and then I'll move up, okay? And here at the end, I might even do 2 extrusions, so I'm sure that the pieces clip into one another nicely. And I made some kind of a mess there. That happens, by the way, we make messes all the time. Nothing to worry, we're in this X-ray mode, so we can just start cleaning up. Select the faces that we don't want, the problems that we just made, and we dissolve them. This face inside, it's not needed either, because that is the place where the mirror will the pieces together. If I continue it, so see, it just did it for me. And then on the Y, so yeah, about there, cool. It's not a perfect one, by the way, like this X-ray view tells me that there is an issue there. This is an issue to clean up later, it's not a big deal. After we apply the subdivision and the mirror, I will weld the vertices by hand. For now, it's okay, we can leave it like this. I did have something else in mind to show you though, so let's go back to our ordinary viewport shading, and let's quickly go into this mode and say face orientation, okay? And nothing changed because I'm on a very new version of Blender. If you are on an older version, this face orientation would turn everything blue, meaning that the faces, their normals, are pointing outwards towards us, which is correct. But if for some reason face was flipped and pointing the wrong direction, you would have a red element like so on everything else that would be blue. Fix that by selecting it all in edit mode and doing Alt-N and then recalculate outside. So yeah, that's kind of a cleanup. If you are having any issues with any of your gradients on your smoothing not looking so clean and nice like mine, you bet that the issue is probably the face orientation. So yeah, just a note, keep it in mind, open viewport overlays from time to time and tick on face orientation and look and make sure that everything is the way you want. Cool, so this piece is done, and here on my original one you can see that I was actually being kind of lazy and I smashed one piece into another. I clipped them together like so, when I was making like this. I then put a leaf over them, and it kind of got me a visual that I like, you know. So this piece is kind of a block out, so that's why it's so dense in geometry. Like the next step would be I would select different loops that are not needed, and I'll dissolve them, and I'll get it to be more low poly and game ready, and then I would consider UV unwrapping and texturing. I've done this type of work, this body of the tower, and I've done it for this arc and the flying pieces. And I'm not going to do it here because this video would be incredibly long if I did so. Just mentioning that I'll make the pieces clip into one another like this for now because we're really blocking out. And yeah, you can clean it up yourself later on by looking up common practices of turning a high poly mesh into more of a low poly mesh, merging pieces together in a more appropriate way, and all in all preparing your mesh to be truly low poly, ready for UV unwrapping and then baking. So yeah, I copied that piece and then I kind of like scale it on the x-axis, and I'm going to leave a gap like that, this seam here that happens to be there, because I don't really mind it nearly as much as I said. I'll put a leaf div over it. Let me show you how I make these leaves. But before we do that, I'll actually show you something really quick. Let's make a little cube, scale it up, and let's go into the material and make a new one. Froze for a second. We froze for a lot of time. Oh god damn. Let's hope we don't crash. Yeah, when you make a new material, Blender starts to recalculate shaders, which is on the CPU. And my CPU is not great, my GPU is amazing. This is why it froze for a second. There we go, cool. So this material, I'll double click and say gold preview. And for its surface, if I change, well, first off, select all of the faces, and then say assign. So we assign this preview material. And now we did assign. If we change the base color, we see that nothing changes because this base color only shows in the viewport shading, like so. So yeah, this color doesn't really matter. I'm gonna leave it what it was. And instead I'll scroll down and I'll go to viewport display. And in the viewport display, I'll change to like this kind of like golden material. And I'll put up a metallic of 0.1. and roughness that is lower to give it a bit of shininess. This is really just a preview, but I'm doing it because now I can select these gold materials here, the golden leaves, that's what I call them, and I can click plus and find my gold preview and assign it. There we go. And that's incredibly shiny. It looks like it's from the 90s retro game. Let's put the roughness back up a bit. There you go. That's a bit better. Anyway, so yeah, we have that golden preview material now, and just makes it easier for me to illustrate and talk about the different parts. So the way I made these leaves, I used this technique, which is a combination of a few different modifiers, namely the subdivision modifier in the way that we've already seen and used so far, but also I have started with a cube, but that cube I've actually turned into a single face. Let's do that really quickly. So delete this and keep just a face, set origin. And by starting with this face, I can then say solidify in the modifier stack, okay? And this solidify, I then gives a bit of a thickness, and a plane, a piece that is a 2D piece, it doesn't have depth, it's not really a three-dimensional piece, I suddenly turn from 2D into 3D. I love that because it lets me do this. I can select the face and I do this, see? And this just turns immediately into an actual geometry, and I have easier control because here I just need to select one loop and then bevel, another loop and then bevel, and I don't need to select anything on the other side, it just immediately works. You can auto smooth it. Next up, just after the solidify, I put my favorite subdivision surface. I mean, look at that. I think without me talking further, you can already see and get how these can easily be turned into that, you know? So I will go from this side and kind of move my leaf around there. I'll move it down and I'll select from here to the bottom and I'll delete them. So we essentially start again with this plane. And you need to be aware that when you select it, you can also kind of in a really cool way rotate it like so, see, like in a different angle, and then like that. And you can literally just have fun with it and play and kind of place it in a location that you really like. Once you've done that, it's even more fun. You start extruding like so. Maybe go in this mode and move it like that. And then, pro tip, strive for not going with too many loops at first. Make broad loops like this, okay? Move them out. And when you've made a really large broad stroke like so, only then consider beveling in a detailed way to get you things like that. If you want interesting twists, another pro tip, Control Z to go back a few steps, do bizarre angles like that, which might look like they're breaking things a little bit. Move things inside and then bevel, then select the entire piece and move it out a bit. But you can see how it kind of like gives it that interesting twist. So let's select these and these and go into this view and move them so. Maybe I don't like that there, so I just dissolve it. See, easy control. I probably want a bit more thickness, so let's go to 0.4. Is that enough? Maybe even 0.6. There we go. Move it a bit in place. And cool, let's continue. So from here, go like that, select that, rotate. You can select parts and really kind of like change the scale as well. That always adds for an extra punch. There we go, like that, like that. And you can be as intricate and ornate with these pieces as you want, really. It is up to you. My main thing that I strive for is to like have it be ever so slightly on the surface, like so. I don't want it like too in there because I don't want it like clipping in a way that might make a glitchy visual when the camera moves, when the player, they move around in the game itself. And now, next tip, these we can loop here, move to that, and then the tip we could select and scale down, and that gives us like that dimensionality there. Another tip, we can loop cut in the middle, it immediately gives it more dimension. We can bevel that newly created loop. We can lower the segments to just 2. And this middle loop we can then select, and from a camera angle that we like, we can go in. And when we go in, look at that. It made that leafy inwards a bit. The only thing is, for the other piece, I didn't really do it on the entirety. Like I made this loop that we just saw, and then I selected it from there to there or so, maybe here, this one as well, and then I moved in. I didn't really do it to the very end because that just produces a cooler result. I can select this in the subdivision, the triangle, and then slide that to the surface a bit more to stop the entire thing from happening at the edge. And there we go. And then here as well. And see, like I do things by just eyeing it, like just looking at it and doing an estimate. This is not a precise science. I don't really measure or go really careful with it. Here, by the way, I might want to change my smooth by angle to like 60 degrees, just in case. And I'm having like this happen there in the middle that I really dislike. So let's see what would be the easiest way to fix it. Maybe if I select from here to here and I dissolve, see, and I prematurely end this entire loop, kind of like makes it a bit better. Here I could select that point and merge it last to this, and it kind of like ends it even quicker. I think that's something that I did over to the other piece. I'm kind of liking this. Something that I immediately noticed that can be improved is I could select this, and I can go to the frontal view and I can give it a bit more like depth, because I kind of want to cover parts of the door with it. And I select these like so. Cool. See, when I move this, it makes the crevice a bit less obvious. I don't really mind currently, but it's something that you might want to keep in mind, because it depends on how you want your art to look like. Okay. Now, this has like an elegant twist that this one doesn't nearly have. Thinking that maybe we go to 0.8 to give it even more depth, because the other one really has it. And let's see, in edit mode, I'm going to select it all, and then from here, from the upper side, maybe rotate all of it a tiny bit, and then go into X-ray and kind of start selecting and moving pieces. Again, whenever I make big selections of vertices, I make sure that I'm in X-ray mode so I don't miss something. So, and let's see and just make some fun twists, because the other leaf has an interesting twist. I think in the other leaf I had selected parts and I had done a rotation like this, you know, like really breaking it. It doesn't really break it, but you know what I mean. Really going out of my way for making an interesting shape. Maybe select that and bring it like in. Select the vertices there, do that, do this, and then select that. I'm going quick here, by the way, but like I'm just, as I mentioned, having fun and really experimenting. And I think that's what you should be doing as well. Have fun with the pieces that you're making and leave the energy of like the experimentation to take you to some artistic and interesting result. Nice. So I kind of like this twist, and here I've selected the wrong vertex, so I'm gonna go back, go into this mode, select that, and move it and put it like so. And then let's take a look there again. Okay. So I think I really want to select that and do it like this, because the entire leaf makes a bit of rotation that way on the other one. Cool, select that. And X-ray to make sure, yep, we have it. So we rotate these to be just on the surface, but a bit like so. Then we select that part, a bit like that. I don't move the last